Welcome to the Opinionated Benchwarmers Podcast, episode 174. Your opinionated benchwarmers are back to do what we do best. That's discuss sports. Got the entire team on the recording today. Fellas, how y'all doing, man? How y'all feeling?
Good, brother. Good, brother. Good to have you back. We gave you a huge shout out last week, but to see your
I
face,
heard it,
man, to
bro.
see you glowing, man, look, brother, congrats again. I just want to publicly do it. We did it in private. We celebrated, a week ago. So again, bro, congrats to you. Glad to be back. Glad to have the full team back.
Same here, man. Got to give you the congrats as well. Obviously, we had a little pre-pod talk that led up to this, but once again, man, like you said, it was a great celebration. Definitely for a wonderful couple, and especially to see our brother actually tie the knot, man. It's just definitely a big moment.
Hey,
Um, yeah, so we
uh,
got to give up the congrats. We got to do it while you actually on the podcast, so that the listeners also too. Man, if y'all want to drop congrats, drop it in the comments or anything like that, man.
for
Pour out the
sure.
support, man. Especially since from people that's been holding it down for a while. So I'm not gonna hold it anymore, man. We can just jump straight into the pod at this point.
You know what? I told y'all, like I said, in private, in the private room. Of course, you two gentlemen were in my wedding as grooming. I told you how much I appreciate y'all. But as when I heard the shout out on the episode, I started kind of tearing up a little bit. And then now y'all about to have me do it again. I'm just gonna pull a Stephon Diggs on Thanksgiving Day football. Y'all don't know how much it means to me. So I appreciate y'all, man. And we appreciate all the listeners and the support that we've been receiving for the podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, Opinionated Benchwarmers, on all the podcast platforms that you like to listen to. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube, which has been booming as well. That's how you can get the content, how you can get the fantasy, which was probably one of the best episodes that we've had. If you want to refer back to 173, y'all brothers held that down for the fantasy advice and help you with your fantasy drafts. We know that this is a big fantasy draft heavy weekend, so we wish you luck with that. I mean, I'm sorry, not weekend, but up until Thursday, which is the kickoff, and we appreciate y'all for listening to us, and hopefully, if there's anything that either one of us gentlemen have said to help y'all or support, again, leave that in the comments on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Instagram. We'll appreciate it. Like my brother Ramon said, I ain't gonna hold y'all any longer, fellas. Let's jump into it. Obviously, we want to start with some solemn news. Of course, I was married and I was on a high horse, and then inevitably on Monday night, I was immediately brought down to earth with LSU's loss to USC. We're gonna spend a little time there for all our LSU homies and all our LSU fans back home. My reaction to you, to Ramon, after I've let it board. I've watched the game over again. I've studied the stats and everything. Uh, and I don't think I think the more and more I look into it, and the more I think about it, is the more I become infuriated with Brian Kelly from the start and how he reacted in the press conference. We didn't fix our secondary. Our secondary is just as bad as last year, in my opinion. I think the overall structure of our defense is better. And I do like our new defense coordinator, Coach Baker, but um, I like Nuss too. I don't think Nuss lost us the game. I think he made some mistakes, but I think overall he was on point. But Kyron Lacy, 2 targets in the second half, it can't ever happen ever. And for Brian Kelly just to react that way he did, I don't hear much accountability, even with him saying that he has to coach his players better. I mean, to leave him hanging like that, it was the first thing. As a huge Brian Kelly fan, I was excited when we got him. You've heard it on the podcast, but this is the first time I'm kind of raising my eyebrow at Brian Kelly.
Well, no, I completely agree because to me, it's a different season, the same story. We've kind of seen this play out the last 3 seasons. You kind of give him a pass with his first season, first game stepping into it, and then you see year two where things are supposed to be different, and once again the same thing happened. And now year three, where definitively we're supposed to come into that game, and when I say we, I'm talking about LSU, as a definitive favorite, and you step on that field. And once again, you don't get it done. You see a team that was relatively undisciplined, getting big penalties in spots that really impacted the game. As you alluded to as well, there still are some talent deficiencies, especially within that secondary, that are going to be patched up really the whole season. The way in which they try to really shift is how you mentioned the defensive scheme is to bring more pressure, create more havoc, as they call it, to try to cover up that secondary. But that's going to continue to be issues. But honestly, in my opinion, I have no issue with the defense and how the defense performed on Sunday night. My biggest issue was honestly with Brian Kelly and also with Joe Sloan. And I feel like they are the two most that need to be accountable for what that display was Sunday night. You watched a team that, to me, in a sense, handcuffed the offense at times. You watched a team that really, for the third year in a row, has not figured out a way to establish the run under Brian Kelly. The only time that they've ever been able to run is honestly having Jaden Daniels' legs. Under Brian Kelly for 3 years in a row, you have not been able to consistently establish the run. John Emery made something out of nothing a few of those times to try to get that run game going, but that was very disappointing. What I felt was also disappointing is you say in post game about establishing this killer instinct, and you give all the theatrics and histrionics of hitting the table and all of that. I don't buy that. Killer instinct comes from you as the head coach. We've watched Nick Saban for so many years, and I know he's the golden standard, but I use him as an example. We watch year in and year out that team have killer instinct because of Nick Saban, not based on any offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, not based on the players, but based upon the imprint that he put on the program. So if they're not having a killer instinct, that's you, Brian Kelly. I also felt that the offense got super conservative times that they had a chance to put USC away. You had a ball twice up 17-13 when the defense got you 2 stops. One stop also, too, that obviously we know the Major Burns fiasco that put you back a little bit. But honestly, you got very conservative within both of those instances. Didn't push the ball down the field. And do I feel that that's on Nussmeier? No, because that's not his DNA. We know Nuss to be a gunslinger that we said needed to be reeled in some, but I felt that they reeled him in maybe a little bit too much. So honestly, when I look at that game, and I'm gonna get off, because I can talk about this all day. But when I look at it, I look at Brian Kelly, I look at Joe Sloan, and I give both of them a D for that game. And I think that ultimately they were the reason why that game was lost. Do I feel that Nussmeier had a couple of throws here or there, especially the one to Aaron Anderson, that could have been completed, that could have changed that game a little bit? But I don't think that comes down to him. And I also, even though some people can say that they feel that it's the truth, I don't agree with Brian Kelly inserting and saying that Miller Moss outplayed Nuss. It wasn't necessary. They asked you a question about Miller Moss. They did not ask you about Nussmeier. It was no point for you to then, while you're answering a question about Miller Moss, to then throw a stray at your quarterback who has supported your program for 4 years at this point, who has done something that most quarterbacks don't do and didn't hit the portal. And the way that you reward him is that after his first game of starting, in which he played well and was handcuffed, then you say another quarterback outplayed him without being asked about him. So I'm very displeased with Brian Kelly right now.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on everything I was going to touch. The game is won in the trenches, and our offensive line proved that they could pass block, but run blocking, which takes heart, is not there. And how about Will Campbell, top 10 projected NFL offensive lineman, getting 2 false starts at pivotal times in the game? I mean, just heavily disappointed. That's what your captain is doing. So that just lets you know what your team was. Mental errors, like you mentioned, that's coaching. The secondary being out of position, that is coaching. So, again, I don't want to discuss it anymore, but it's obvious that, we just got to set the record straight. First game, we're not ringing the alarm yet. There's some things that obviously they need to fix. They got Nicholls State coming up this week, so maybe we'll see something a little different. But other than that, we can move on from here. Gentlemen, we had our fantasy draft, the Opinionated Benchwarmers podcast keeper league draft this past weekend. We wanted to bring what the tips we brought to our listeners' previous episodes to this episode. How do you fellas feel about your guys' roster? I don't know how we could do this to make add context for the listeners as far as knowing what our roster is of its entirety. I don't know if y'all want to just say who's the best player that you grabbed, or what strategy you felt worked, or.
Yeah, I mean, I always can add, a clip of the draft board, maybe through the first 6, 7 rounds. I can
Oh,
always, not a
nice.
clip, but a picture of that, to kind of talk through and maybe highlight some of our drafts on there. But I mean, just thinking through the fantasy portion of the draft, I think overall, I think my draft was okay, 7th round. Now, granted, for the listeners that understand, this is a 12-man league. This is a PPR league. This is a keeper league, right? Where I value and all those different things will, you might see for me, I picked up Puka off the waivers. We do a thing in our league where you pick anybody off the waivers, you then have to give up a 10th round the following year. So don't think that I drafted Puka in the 10th round. When you look at the clip, you can think like, what in the
Like,
world
what are
am I
those
doing in
guys
this
doing?
Context matters, man.
league?
Context matters.
It absolutely matters. So, I'll just say, I went for a couple guys. The one thing that I will say in a keeper league, right? You always balance potential future over building your potential bench, right? When you're looking at those rounds, those 7th through 10th rounds, you're looking like, okay, so for example, I took Caleb Williams in the 7th round, where I'm like, okay, I already have a quarterback, I already drafted Kyler Murray. Do I build my bench out? Some will argue, yes, you already have a quarterback. Or do I take a shot at a high guy that could potentially go off this year and be a great keeper value next year? So you're always balancing that in a keeper league. And this year, I think I reached on Caleb Williams a little too much. I got a little too excited for him. And so my bench is a little thinner than I like.
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of giving feedback on my roster. I honestly think that I built my roster out pretty well in the draft. I was pretty satisfied overall with my draft. I think that kind of, as Los alluded to, one of the guys that I've kind of had my eye on, really this offseason and heading into the fantasy drafts has been JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's a guy that I feel, that of course he came in with the buzz, the hype. He was the #1 receiver drafted in his draft class. Of course, obviously he played at Ohio State with Chris Olave and also Garrett Wilson. And really as a sophomore, outperformed the two of them. And I look at him being in Seattle. He went into last season actually being hurt. And I feel like that kind of derailed his rookie season a little bit. I look at year 2 that Tyler Lockett is starting to have a little bit of slippage. And with them bringing in a new offensive coordinator, that to me is going to spread the ball around much more. I think that JSN has that ability to take the next step forward. And so he was definitely a guy that I was looking to target kind of in those mid rounds. I believe I got him in the 8th round or so within our draft, which was, to me, was kind of the perfect spot for me to be able to land him. So he was a guy that I was definitely targeting. And then things just kind of fell to me early in the draft, kind of fell pretty well for me. I didn't get my ideal start. I was hoping, for Garrett Wilson in my spot that I was from a keeper standpoint, but a guy that I did have my eyes on, and I don't know why I did this because I said Los was going to turn it into a Rams podcast, but now I'm turning it into a Rams podcast.
Can't help
But
but do it.
but I had my eye on Cooper Kupp. Honestly, I think that Cooper Kupp is a guy that's been kind of disparaged and kind of looked over a lot in fantasy drafts. ADP kind of slid down this year. And he was a guy that I thought out, that the ADP game was going to work for me, that I was going to be able to snag in the 2nd round. And he got snagged 2 picks before me. But overall, I still like the way that my roster landed.
Yeah, I mean, in this keeper league, I decided to keep CD Lamb. So obviously I lost out on my 1st round pick and I kept Sam Laporta, which I was able to. I got him late last year as a rookie with a 12th round pick. So that, no harm, no foul there. I'm good with getting value there. I felt like it was important to get CD Lamb and to keep CD Lamb because I understood that sitting at that 11th spot, he wasn't coming back. So I think he would have probably went #1 with how everything was going. So I thought it was important for me to get that stud receiver, which is on my board. Is honestly, he's my wide receiver 1 for this fantasy season. So for me personally on my fantasy board, it was very important for me to get CD. And being that I went strong there, I was able to get Marvin Harrison in my swing on that 2nd round swing, which is I think is a very valuable wide receiver too. I'm willing to take a risk on him. He was the #1 debatable best receiver. It was him and Malik Neighbors coming out of this draft. So I think that it's worth taking a shot with Kyler Murray and seeing what he can do. And, just having him in that 2nd wide receiver spot. So I'm not relying on him that much, but I'm relying on him just enough. And I think he will live up to that wide receiver 2 spot. I think with my draft, I did like it because I feel like I'm the only one probably in our draft group that likes Deontay Johnson, but I felt as though he's going too late in drafts with the Panthers. And rightfully so, you should be scared away with him with how their offense looked last year. And Bryce Young, not sure about is he going to be an NFL quarterback. but I believe in Deontay Johnson's talent that much, and I like the reports coming out of camp that he would be the guy coming out. So I took a chance on him. 6th-round pick. I think that's pretty good value there because that's potentially drafting a wide receiver too. Now, because I went so wide receiver heavy here, I did have to take kind of a step back and decide, okay, what am I going to do as far as running back? I ended up with Najee Harris and James Conner, which I think a lot of people have slept on James Conner this year. When he is healthy, he's a bell cow, and I don't expect anything different. I know that Trey Benson is on his heels, and they drafted him out of Florida State this year. But I mean, at the same time, I drafted him too. He's sitting on my bench as a handcuff. So I like the way my draft turned out. I think my team will be a good competitor, especially with Lamar Jackson as my quarterback who can win your week alone himself. So I think I'm sitting pretty good, guys. I like how my draft came out. But if for all the listeners out there with Keeper League, you definitely should explore that option. It's a fun way to play fantasy.
Now that I mean y'all ran through y'all awesome drafts and y'all just got these league contending
Oh, and
drafts, you know
Najee
what I
Harris
mean?
too. Najee Harris.
How these great drafts that y'all have. We'll see how it shakes out. But I did want to ask y'all, how did y'all? I know y'all have multiple drafts, multiple leagues y'all in. Is it a certain guy that y'all targeting? Is it a certain guy that y'all are you want to have? I know you mentioned Cooper Kupp right in the third, but is there some guy in the later rounds that you like? Hey, I want to have a piece of this guy on multiple rosters. Maybe not all because you know how that happens, but and I'll finish and I'll tell you my guy that I've been getting quite a bit of.
You
Or
want to
if
go,
y'all want me to
Ron?
start.
Yeah, I feel like this one is kind of hard for me because I kind of already lobbed up who my guy was that I was really
Yeah,
targeting.
Cooper.
Cooper, but I talked about JSN, already. He
Okay,
was really
yeah,
that guy
Yeah.
that I believe is a little bit of a sleeper this year because of that performance last year. That I think that the talent is there, the new offense is there, and I think that he has that opportunity to slide into that number 2 role over there in Seattle. But I think that you look at, an offensive coordinator who came and was able to use that wide receiver trio in Washington last year with Rome Odunze that we know and with Jalen Polk and with Justin McMillan. And I believe he brings a lot of those concepts, obviously, to the Seahawks. And so that's why I think that, honestly, Jackson Smith and Jigba takes a step forward. And so he's been more so that guy that I would say I've been taking that chance on.
I got two for me that I've been going after, and you guys heard Deontay Johnson, which you guys been drafting with me for years. Y'all know how I feel about Deontay. Every year he has to be on my roster. But even going deeper than that, I would say Cortland Sutton is falling in a lot of drafts, and that is a perennial wide receiver one, and he just got paid. So they're gonna get the ball to this guy. No more Judy there to take away some targets, even though Judy was banged up anyway and didn't really perform well. But I like taking a chance on Judy. I know what Sean Payton has done historically with great receivers. Not to say that he's anywhere near Michael Thomas level, but we have seen what Sean Payton can do with his wide receiver one. So Cortland Sutton, his ADP is just too low for my liking. So I'm trying to snag him. I got him in the 9th round in our draft. But his average draft, he's going, I don't think he's going 13, but they're saying his average ADP is 13 right now. So
No, I think those are good. And my one guy that I'm going with, that I've been getting a lot of is Kyler Murray. He's been a guy that I've been getting a lot
yeah,
of him in multiple drafts, and that's
yeah.
because one, you talk about Marvin Harrison, him adding a true receiver. You talk about their defense being probably historically bad over there, so they're going to constantly be playing catch up there. So I think he's going to have to air it out. In his 5 years in the league, he's averaged 5 points with his feet 4 of the 5 of those years. So you talking him being healthy going into this season, and you talking about the weapons he's added over there. You talk about the Trey Benson, you talk about the James Conner, you know what I mean? You talk about Trey McBride, who's stepping up now. I think he's right now going way farther. He's being overlooked a lot
Yeah.
in drafts right now. And you talk about that Russian QB just being an advantage alone going against other guys. I've been getting a lot of him. He's been a guy that I've been targeting and hoping to stack him with Marvin Harrison, just haven't been working out quite like I've been wanting to.
Yeah, yeah. And to add to no, I definitely agree with that. To add to that, just the 2 quick names. One guy we talked about him previously that I was targeting later in drafts as well too is Chase Brown in Cincinnati. I know that right now they have that shared backfield with Zach Moss, but I really feel that to me, with looking at them from a talent standpoint, I do think that Chase Brown is more talented than Zach Moss, just my opinion. And I think that he'll take over that backfield eventually. And then the other name as potential.
Hold on, Ramon, not to cut you off,
Okay.
that Zach Moss was named RB1 today. So does that change how you feel about it?
It doesn't change how I feel about it. I think that as the season goes on, I still like Chase Brown. Yep.
Okay.
And I would say one more name that this is something that to get kind of that early support, it may shift as the season goes on, but this may be early trade bait for you. I think Jerome Ford has been a good name, to go and target late in drafts. We obviously know the situation with Nick Chubb over there on the PUP list. We know that he'll miss the first 4 games of the season at least. That puts that backfield in Jerome Ford's hands. He was an RB2 last year, finished actually as RB16 based on being able to take over once Chubb went down. And so I think that he's a guy that you can definitely grab and stash, and is a guy that maybe you can, utilize early in the season, throw him in a trade because he's going to perform well early off, and then reap the rewards from that from maybe grabbing somebody else too. So he's another one to just think about.
I like that. I don't like it personally because I took I took Chubb in one of my dynasty league drafts. So I'm hoping that you're wrong, but I like the thought process behind it, and I see it that way. But to wrap up fantasy things, do y'all have anything else? I'm mad that you said that, Los, because I got one more draft. So
Yeah.
hopefully the gentleman not listening to this, but Kyler
We
Murray.
talking about collar? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that is. If you listen to this, you got a draft. You get your Kyler. Kyler's gonna have a big year. But um, anything else besides before we get into the kickoff season opener? So Thursday night we have Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson facing off each other. Lamar, I asked in the conference about his relationship with Patrick. He said he don't have any. He don't have a relationship with any quarterback in the league actually. And then he pulled it back and said he's actually a great quarterback. But in that, you're just starting to kind of see something brewing between that, and you see Lamar's competitiveness. What are y'all expecting the outcome to be this Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, I respect it, right? Because again, you're competing, right? You want to be the best. You look over to this guy and you see how many championships he got, and you don't still have one yet. You saying this because you want to be there. Everybody, if any competitor, they want to be on top. They want to be number one. Right now, Patrick Mahomes hold that spot. And so, to answer your question, Rob, this Thursday, I expect the Ravens to come out pretty intense to pretty mad, and I expect them to win this game, right? And I expect them to beat the Chiefs this game, and I know it's been a lot of talk, how obviously after they beat the Ravens last year and how they lost, and even Derrick Henry saying that he wished that he was a part of that game last year. Well, he get a chance to be a part of this game week 1 this year to open the season, right? To show, okay, cool, y'all ready now? Let's do it. And I think, they show up, and I think that they find a way to win this game week 1.
Yeah, I mean, what a better way to get, like, I don't think there's a better way to get the season started than having a matchup of this
I
magnitude.
can't
Like,
wait, fellas. I
I
cannot
mean,
wait. Thursday can't get here soon enough.
yes, I mean, these are two of the teams that obviously we have in the top 5 of our rankings heading into the season. If you haven't seen our rankings, head over to the Instagram,
Thanks.
head over to Instagram and make sure you check them out. But these are two teams that we have in the top 5 of our rankings. I think it's definitely two teams that once again you'll see competing in the AFC. Probably this could be a preview of the AFC Championship. And so honestly, heading into it, it's a pick 'em. I think that right now the line is -3 Kansas City, and so when you have that type of line at home, that means that's basically a pick 'em at that point. I still gonna side with that man, Patrick Mahomes. I know that maybe they riding that high of 2 Super Bowls in a row, and maybe they're not as focused and things of that sort. But it's still hard to go against that man opening up the season. I know that you're gonna have that motivation like you're talking about that Lamar has, but Patrick Mahomes is still that guy, and I just look at Kansas City as the team that's gonna get it done.
Look, y'all guys touched on it well. All I would say is 17-10 NFC Championship game obviously left a bad taste in Lamar's mouth. I expect a spectacular performance by him. He sounds like he's locked in. Derrick Henry is playing with a chip on his shoulder too, because a lot of people are writing him off because of his age, because of the poor team he was on in Tennessee with the injury history. Look, this man is healthy and he's ready to ball. I expect the Chiefs to win this game. I know I hyped it up. I just couldn't do it.
After
I just
all,
couldn't do it. I think I
after
can't bet
What
all,
against
well,
Patrick Mahomes. I will not bet against that man. He's a bad man. I think it will be close. It will be entertaining. I do think Lamar and Derek will have good games, but I don't think it'll be enough. So moving on, just one more storyline. Jamar Chase still have not figured out a deal. He's aiming to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. From a talent aspect, I could see it, but statistically, and when you look in comparison to him and Justin Jefferson, I don't know if I see him as being paid higher than Justin Jefferson if that's what he's looking for. But who knows?
I mean, if you're playing that game, give him 1 more cent more. You know what I mean? Like let's get this guy in
I don't think
camp.
he
You know what I
deserved
mean?
that, but I do agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think the thing about it is, I know that people can say it's never too early, but to me, he really is 1 year away from getting that deal, man. Like
I know
I
it's like he's negotiating 2 years before his contract's up. It's like,
yeah,
come on, man. Like, be
yeah,
there for Joe. Joe is healthy now. Y'all could really make a run. Like, I
yeah,
understand him wanting to be paid. I can't speak on that. But like, man, 2 years before,
yeah. I feel like
bro,
next
you
year was yeah.
naturally the market would dictate that you get more than Justin Jefferson because the market changes year to year.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, I agree with it. And you look at, man, I mean, CD came in a year before him. CD just got his deal. So like I really feel that next offseason is really more so of that season for Jamar Chase. Now I know you'll say, hey, you got to get your money when you can, and you never know what can happen from year to year. So
Yeah,
apply the pressure at this point. But I really do agree. I think that maybe waiting a year and the thing about it, I'm a huge Jamar Chase fan, just to
yeah,
let you know,
yeah. Me
like
too.
Jamar Chase is
He's an
my favorite
LSU guy.
player
Yeah.
in the NFL,
Oh,
honestly. And
word,
so,
word. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
Jamar Chase is my favorite player in the NFL. I'm a big Jamar Chase fan. That's why I try to get him on fantasy teams when I can. I hate that, in our opinionated bench warmers league, that Lowe's has him on his team because he's on two of my fantasy teams in other leagues, but neither here nor there. But hopefully they can get something figured out. I don't want to see him hold out further than that because obviously too, I don't need that from a fantasy football standpoint. But
It looked like it's going to the wire. I
yeah,
mean, it
yeah.
could go to a Saturday, but how good is he going to be to play? I mean, you almost gotta at this point of the week just plan to not have him available.
Yeah, it's
So
tough.
I know we passed up our fantasy tip, but if you plan to draft him in today or tomorrow, you may want to come up with a plan after because I don't think he'll be playing week one.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely passed on him in some leagues. Had that I was sitting in that 7, 8 spot, which is way too low for him. And I just couldn't. I had to take somebody like St. Brown over him, who I know is going to get a full 17 games from. You know what I mean?
That's not a bad pick though. St.
That's
Brown.
It's not a bad
Hey,
pick,
St.
but
that's
Brown a dog
but
too.
if everything was even, I'm taking Chase. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
so that was the decision that I had to
Yeah.
make. So, that's neither here nor there either. So.
In other good news, because teams do treat their players well, and apparently San Francisco has some decisions to make. They did rework Trent Williams, probably the best. He is the best left tackle in the game in NFL. $82 million deal. What do you guys think?
I like it. I like it. I like it because I don't like the 49ers and I want them to keep spending their money and keep figuring out things. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, I want them to keep spending their money because if eventually they're going to have to cut players and trade them. It's just how it goes. There's a cap for a reason, so they can't pay everybody.
yeah,
I honestly felt this may not be a good opinion, but I honestly felt they could have let Ayuk go. Honestly, I felt as though they could have let him go, and I feel like they could have saved a lot of money there. But obviously, with Pearsall getting shot, thank God that he's okay. Appears to be that he's okay and was released. He'll be out for 4 weeks, obviously, and praying for him. But I just felt like with what Ayuk brought. I never been a huge Ayuk fan, but he always performs well on other people's fantasy teams. But just the consistency aspect and just who you're going to. I mean, it's games where even Debo, who's supposed to be your number one receiver, it's a lot of games where Debo's not even willing you to win. So I don't understand why you'll pay your wide receiver to that amount of money. But
yeah. No, I agree. I really feel the same way. I think that they could have traded him, could have got some assets for him, and the way you really seeing the receiver position progress over the years too is becoming so much plug and play. Like You really could have went and grabbed a guy. I mean, I know like you talked about the Ricky Pearsall situation, but I agree with you. I wouldn't have broken the bank for Brandon Ayuk, but maybe he's just a guy that's under the radar to us. I see how he, performs week in and week out, but he's not a
Yeah,
guy that
just not on
moves
my
the
team.
needle to me.
But to add on, since we're talking contracts, there's one guy that is not signed, and that's homie from the Jets. Can't think of his name right now. They traded for him at the end of last season, and come
You
on, help
talking
me
about
out
the
here.
defensive end?
Defensive end. What's his name again?
Oh, I don't know why you brought him
Oh,
up.
Hassan Reddick. All right, Hassan
Yes,
Reddick. Okay.
yes,
Sorry about that.
yes.
Sorry about that, listener. Thanks for bearing with us. If you've been listening to us this long, you know that we aren't really good with names outside of Ramon. But Ramon lately, he hasn't been knowing the names either a little bit. He's been shaky on the names.
Hey, we
Starting to
all have
catch
our
up with
times,
you.
man. We all have our times. We now
Hassan
hit at
Reddick.
least 32 now, so it changes
Yeah,
things.
Yeah, we've been doing this
right.
for 6 years. So no, but Hassan Reddick, he's the last NFL player not to be signed. So I mean the Jets are really putting their feet in the ground here. What do y'all think of him just, talent wise? I mean, what does he have left in the tank? Because the Eagles let him go they was pretty clear, hey, we're not paying you. You can go.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what grounds he had to stand on. The Jets are already a good defense. They already spent draft capital on him to get him over that. I don't know what grounds he really had to stand on right now, and he's just going to be losing money by the day, really. So the defense, the Jets said pretty much the coach came out and said we will take him in when he comes in, but I haven't talked to him since before the season started. So I mean, it sounds like they're moving forward. He's going to be losing money. He's going to eventually probably show up at some point. So I don't really get his game here.
Yeah, he's not one that has that Jamar Chase leverage at all. So I think that honestly he needs to go ahead and show up and be ready to play because honestly, maybe the money comes there, maybe honestly it doesn't, and you still begin to show it for the next team that you might end up on. But I don't think that, he really has the leverage at this point. So
Look, man, I mean, the longer as it takes the team, the longer this goes, the way that it goes, it lets you know how a team feels about you as a player. And I'm not talking about Jamar Chase, but maybe I am a little bit because they know that they have a legitimate wide receiver too
yeah,
there
you talking
that
about
can,
T, yeah.
yeah, that will. What'd you say?
Oh, you talking about T Higgins?
T Higgins, who probably could
Yeah.
be a wide receiver one somewhere else. But that probably is what's driving him. But they're gonna pay him. But for Reddick, you have no leverage at all. And I applaud the young man for trying to get paid, but I don't think it's gonna happen, man. I think he's gonna probably miss a game, and then he'll probably be showing up week 2 or week 3.
I agree.
All right, gentlemen, I think we did it again. Is there anything else NFL wise besides who that go Saints
Come on,
over and
y'all see
under?
you see the shirt. You
No,
see the
but I
shirt.
no, I wanted to keep it real, man. Over and under on wins of your favorite team.
I'll say 10 for the Rams.
Oh, he
Yeah.
said that confidently.
Yeah, I'll do the 9.5 for the over under, but I'll take
Yeah,
10. Yeah.
yeah. I
I'll,
take nine
I'll,
and a half. I'll take nine
I'll,
and a half on the Saints.
yeah, and I'll take the under on both of those teams easily. But
Okay, I take 9.5. I actually went through the schedule and who we have to play. We have a lot of gimme games. We'd have to we have a lot of gimme games on that schedule. So, depending on how good the Atlanta Falcons are, that could take away from that total. But I think we can get 10 this year. I think we can get
hmm.
10.
A lot of optimism on this pod week.
Week
That's
one, that's the
All
fun thing
right.
about football. Everybody feel like they're
Yeah. We
contending
all
week
going to the
one.
playoffs. Yeah.
no.
Week five, week six, you're like, yeah, this ain't the year, man. This ain't the
I don't know after week 2, man. I mean,
year.
we got so many issues. I don't even want to go down that road. But man, gentlemen, I think we did it again. Again, appreciate the shout out on the previous episode and everything. Shout out to all the listeners and the supporters and the subscribers that's been rolling in. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on your any podcast platform you like to listen to. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube. That's when we drop. That'll alert you when we drop and everything for the content. Until next time, we out of here.
Later.